How about the glorious news confronting newspaper readers today, hey? Bold headlines, stunning pictures of the vast new offshore wind farms with turbines 260 metres tall coming to a coastline near you. Well, not if you live in Melbourne or Sydney. The politicians don't want to inconvenience you or ruin your view. But Newcastle, Wollongong, Ulladulla, Gippsland, get ready for these massive wind turbines, we're told. Oh, it's all so wonderful, isn't it? All presented as good news by much of the media and by governments. Net zero and saving the planet is such a doddle after all, isn't it? I mean, that's what we keep being told. We shut down the coal and gas that currently supplies about 2/3 of our power. We switch to renewable energy and storage. It generates thousands of jobs and we get abundant and reliable power and the costs go down. It's a win-win-win.
This is a plan to take Australia forward, to create jobs, cut power bills and reduce emissions by boosting renewable energy. That will mean that renewables are 82% of the national energy market by 2030. The good news is that the modelling shows we'll create 604,000 new jobs while we're doing it.
Whoa, all this and we become a renewable energy superpower too, whatever that is. If it all sounds too good to be true, it usually is. In the election campaign, Anthony Albanese even dared to put a dollar figure on his grand clean energy delusion.
Households will benefit by $275 on average. Reducing power prices by $275. That will reduce power prices by $275. Prices by $275. $275. $275 a year. $275. $275 a year. $275. $275 a year.
Yeah, too good to be true, all right. Since then, power prices have gone up by 10% or more in some places. In other words, for some people, prices have already risen by $275 a year rather than fallen. So Albo's going to need to get them down by another $500 a year to make good on his pledge, which is why he doesn't repeat that promise anymore. In fact, the forecasts from the Reserve Bank tell us power prices will go up another 25 or 30% within a year. Nevertheless, the Labor, Greens and Teals, their renewable energy push is now about to continue on steroids. What about these wind farms you see dotting the landscape now? Some people love them, others call them a blight on the landscape, but they are ubiquitous. There are now more than 100 of them around the country. Remember that number, more than 100 wind farms. And then there's the vast, shiny solar farms. I don't think anyone likes the look of these, blocking out plant growth, taking up agricultural land and feeding in power only when the sun is shining. Australia has just over 50 of these now, either up and running or underway. More than 50. Again, remember that number, more than 50 solar farms. Because to get to this level of large-scale wind and solar, the costs have been enormous. Put aside the subsidies, put aside the rooftop and small-scale stuff, the cost of just the large-scale clean energy projects, according to the Reserve Bank, by 2 years ago had seen $8.5 billion spent by government, triggering another $30 billion of private spending. Obviously, it would be more now, 2 years on, and well over $40 billion. So we've seen the expansive and numerous projects, we've seen the cost, and we've experienced what it's done to our power prices. Now, where are we heading? Well, the Australian Energy Market Operator has spelled out the path to net zero. It says that this country will need 9 times what we have today in utility-scale renewable projects. 9 times. That means the current record investment in variable renewable energy, that's wind and solar, has to continue every year to 2030. Then that capacity has to double in the following decade and then double again in the decade after that. Just think about that. which is why I wanted you to remember those numbers from before. 100 wind farms and 50 solar farms. They're telling us we need 9 times that. We'll need 1,000 wind farms and 500 solar farms. Imagine the land taken up. Imagine the landscapes. Imagine the arguments with communities. No wonder they're trying to take them offshore at far greater expense too, so that not too many people see them and there are no landowners to deal with. And all this means too that if we've spent $40 billion or more already, we can expect that in today's dollars, we're talking about another $400 billion at the very least, perhaps double that. And Labor, the Greens and the Teals and the left Liberals and the big corporates, they tell us that while this happens, prices will go down and we won't have energy shortages or blackouts, and they mock nuclear as an expensive alternative. This is why I'm telling you all the warm fuzziness around the new government and climate action and net zero might now look like a political advantage, especially to most of the media who always go along with this stuff because it's fashionable. But the hard reality of past experience, real-world costs and demands, and the cold hard fact that none of this will have any discernible impact on the climate, it will not move the dial on climate one iota, well, all of this will play out and it will be very ugly. Reality and truth have a habit of mugging people and governments eventually. And this is all headed for one mighty economic awakening and political train wreck. I just hope the parties on the right can get their act together quickly, because they've been sucked too far down this path already, committing to net zero. They need to offer a clear, rational and practical alternative. If they do that, silencing their own climate warriors too, they'll be in a position to rescue the nation from economic, environmental and energy madness.